Welcome to Fall Rise Give, where we explore life's ups and downs through the lens of a mainstream drunk's design for living. Join us as we navigate the twists and turns of life, sharing stories of resilience, hope, and the power of giving back. Whether you're sober curious, in recovery, or simply seeking inspiration, this podcast is your go-to for real talk, raw emotion, and a whole lot of heart. Tune in and discover how to fall, rise, and give back in life's extraordinary journey. Welcome to the first edition of the Fall, Rise, and Give podcast. I'm your co-host, Bartender Bob, along with my other co-host, and you are?
Kumar.
And we are here to talk about just a bunch of different things. Kumar has written a book, or working on writing a book, about falling, rising, and giving, and basically setting a whole... what's the word I'm looking for? You're trying to make this into a whole big worldwide event, aren't you?
Yeah, I am actually. More than an event. I want it to be a community of people that inspire each other to live a life that doesn't suck quite, actually, Bob. We all live a life that oftentimes just sucks.
You know, we've all gone through times where things do suck. But, you know, I find that for me personally, when things are bad and I start thinking that, man, this is shit, everything's just going to hell. As soon as I start thinking that, then things start to go like this. You know, they start to go down. But as soon as I start thinking, you know what, if this is the worst thing that happens today, everything kind of rises back up from there and kind of goes in a positive direction rather than going in a negative.
Exactly. So there's a whole lot of things out there that can help us turn our mindset, our thoughts, and that lead to a better result after we've fallen or we're failing. It's really about shifting attitudes. Attitudes are kind of a result of your thought process. So really what we're going to dig in deeper down the road is we're going to use techniques like yoga of the mind. We're going to talk about some ancient philosophies on meditation and things like that to kind of shift your mind. Mm-hmm. But really what we want to do is talk about daily living and how when we fall, we can shift our mindset into living a more of an inspired life. I just start by small action items, small steps. And we're going to talk through about our experiences and just going to talk through kind of in a light manner of how we're all going through this journey called life.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk a little bit about our journey, because our journey for us for this podcast is actually starting on Easter Sunday. It's Easter Sunday 2024, and I don't know about you. I have two favorite holidays. I have Thanksgiving and Easter. And Thanksgiving, the reason that Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday is because there's no expectations. It's just a meal. It's family getting together and having fun and talking and sharing about the things that we're thankful for. Easter, kind of the same thing. I mean, it's all obviously it's the birth of Christ, the Christ rising, but the family part of it, the family piece of it is what I really dig, is that, you know, that there's a good meal, there's everybody getting together, there's a camaraderie, there's no gifts. I do like Christmas, but Christmas, it tends to fall on the secular side with Christmas being, a time to get gifts and blah, blah, blah. For me, it's all about the family, the giving, the talking, the friendship, and the camaraderie together.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Thanksgiving for me is really about being grateful. Getting together with family. It's actually my favorite holiday as well. We've never actually talked about this, Bob, but being grateful is one of the fastest ways that we can shift our mindset. As soon as we start thinking about how grateful we are just to be alive, just the fact that we have our health. We know we'd give everything for our health when we don't have it.
Right.
So the fact that we actually have our health today is one. So definitely for me, Thanksgiving. I tend to like Christmas a lot because it's the birth of Christ. I kind of have a passion for Christ. I feel like I have an open-minded religion, so this is not a podcast about Christianity by any means. It just happens to fall on an Easter. Easter, to me, he has risen. And to me, the theme of this podcast / the book / the community is really all about how do we rise when we have fallen on our face? When all seems gloom and doom out there, how do we actually pick up the pieces and lift ourselves up and maybe get the help of others, our friends and our family, to lift ourselves up? And then lastly, to give back to the community, to say, okay, I've risen, I'm rising, I may fall again, but I'm going to help others by whatever tools that I have, whatever resources that I have. As I help others by giving to them whatever they need, whatever I think I can give them, then I'm able to actually rise a little further higher up.
You brought
There's a whole.
you brought something up about like not being afraid to ask for it or whatever. Do you have a hard time asking people for help when you need help, or
I don't. I know a lot of people that do. A lot of people in society feel like they can't ask for help. That shows weakness. To me, actually shows humility and shows strength. Whenever I ask for help from someone, I actually allow them to be an angel in a way that they can actually feel more valuable. So I think I don't have a personal problem with it. I know a lot of people that do have a problem asking for help because the ego gets in the way.
Mm-hmm.
The ego is another enemy, Bob. We're going to talk about the ego quite a bit. Ego is kind of the problem in this whole thing about rising. So we're going to talk about ego down the road quite a bit.
All right. Well, let's talk about the name of the podcast, Fall, Rise, Give. I know you have the domain name, so fallrisegive.com is the name of the website. The book will be titled Fall, Rise, Give. Why those three words? What's the meaning or the purpose of those three words?
Yeah. So Bob, I've been thinking about this for about 4 or 5 months of this book. And I was actually walking my dog in my neighborhood in Seattle. And I was listening to U2, the band. I've actually gone to digress a little bit. I've seen U2 live 9 times. And I've been pretty close to Bono in the stage realm, about, within 10 feet or so in a couple of concerts. And for me, I was listening to this song called The Fly. And to me, the song or the name or what he thought doesn't really matter as much. But what he says is a man must rise, a man must fall. And there's a secret out there about rising and falling. And I didn't like the concept of you going to rise and fall. I think we all fall first, then we rise. So, and then there's a secret about getting up, getting ourselves up. So that's how I thought about it. But really the big thing for me, the theme of this book is not about my ego and becoming a motivational speaker. We'll talk more about that down the road. It is about giving back to people that are similar to me, maybe not so similar, people that are different than me, giving back and allowing other people to also give. There's a whole religion about thinking of others called Buddhism. Again, I'm not a Buddhist. I'm just going to bring those kind of principles in and out. And that particular religion talks about as soon as you're compassionate towards others, your needs are being met. So anyway, I think giving is a huge part of rising. We're going to fall. And the part of the reason I think we fall in life is that through our experiences, we can actually help others by giving back to them. They're not going to listen to if we're teaching them or telling them something. But if we're sharing the fact that, hey, I've fallen on my face a bunch of times, this is how I got back up, they might listen to me a little bit more.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about how you and I got together here, since this is our first podcast and we're just kind of, setting the tone of what it's all about. You and I actually grew up in Roseville, Minnesota together. You moved to our country. You moved to the United States back when you were in 6th grade?
Yeah, 6th grade. I was 13 years old, 1981, early May of 1981. Yeah.
And so, I mean, from there, I mean, you're a kid that moved here from India. What was your first impressions?
I actually wondered, I haven't thought about this for a long time, but I immediately saw that there's more cars out there in society than there were people. I'm like, where are the people? So you look outside of a house, all you see is cars.
Right.
Look outside the neighborhoods, other people. Compared to India, I felt it was a lonely place. I thought people were in a secluded place. Obviously, people have friends and society and community. Compared to India, I thought the biggest culture shock was there just weren't that many people in the streets or around the neighborhood or what have you. There were just a lot more cars out there. I thought it was a great, modern, very clean city or the country. I thought it was an amazing place. It has a lot of cultural issues that I see of things like loneliness that came about from what I thought early on. But as far as my initial impressions, I thought it was a great, very clean, very modern society. And I kind of had a hard time growing up in the first couple of years, but we'll talk about that later.
All right. So with the, you'd mentioned first or earlier that you wanted to be a motivational speaker when you these days. Why did you not become a motivational speaker?
So Bob, back in high school, we have a mutual friend named Dan Riley. And we used to joke around that, hey, some of us are going to be successful, some of us are going to be whatever. And somehow Dan had this insight, and somehow he knew my deep desires that I wanted to help others, that I wanted to be motivational, I wanted to be inspiring others. And I early on, I didn't feel I was good enough. I knew at some point in life I was going to get enough experiences that I would be able to be good at it. But through college, I got a technical degree in information systems from a school in Wisconsin. I I started reading these books. I started reading Anthony Robbins books. I read a book on visualization. I read a book on Healing the Shame That Binds You by John Bradshaw. There are all these interesting books. And I started to get into that field, but I was just too young. I don't think a 22-year-old or a 24-year-old has any business to be a motivational speaker, unless they're enlightened at some level. If you're the reincarnation of Buddha, maybe, yeah.
Right.
But throughout the years, as we'll talk about again, I did rise to a decent height in internet world. I created a technology company. Funny, the name of that company was called Enthusiasm.com. The Latin word for enthusiasm comes from the word enthos, which means God within. I created a little company, became a successful, millionaire, whatever. At that point, I could have pivoted, but I wanted more. I was so ego driven. I wanted more and more and more. I wanted to be a huge success rather than get back to my main core of, hey, what do I really want? I couldn't quite figure out what I wanted to do. And so I think in life and all through these years, I've just had this, this bear on my back that said, you're not good enough. You're not good enough to be a motivational speaker. You're not good enough to be an author. And so I think in the last few months, last couple of years, I've kind of shifted that mindset. Now I know I may not be good enough, but I'm going to try. I'm going to be better than I was yesterday. And I think that's kind of the message of this whole book, the community, and the theme is, hey, how can you be better tomorrow than you are today?
Here's a question I really want you to think about before you answer, okay? Has life gone like you thought it was going to? I mean, you're sitting there, you and Dan are sitting at the lunch table in high school, and you're talking. He's telling you, you know what, Kumar, you should be a motivational speaker. And your thought at that point, bam, has your life gone where you thought your life was going to go?
Absolutely not. It's been a roller coaster ride. I guess maybe as karma and fate would have it, that's the way it's supposed to be. If you're going to be out there helping people, you got to go up deep lows and you got to go up to high highs. It hasn't gone the way I wanted to go. I've had some amazing, amazing experiences. I got to go to a wedding in a castle in Italy with my wife and a bunch of friends from Seattle. I went through some financial times where I was in debt based on a company that is more than what most people make in a lifetime. And all through these experiences, I've just picked up the pieces and just kept on doing the next step, picking myself up, doing whatever it takes. And so for me, life has not gone the way I wanted to go, but it kind of like The Alchemist by Paul Coelho, the great book. It's one of my favorite books of all time. It's called The Alchemist. Fate leads you into this river of life, and you're going to go through twists and turns. You're going to go through the rock bottoms. You're going to come up to the surface, and you're going to smell the roses on the coast. You're going to get off, maybe have a little picnic on the side and have an amazing experience. You might get drowned by the rapids, what have you, for a little bit, but you'll come back out again, and then you'll live. I think it's gone the way it's supposed to go. It's been hard at times, maybe a little too far. It's too hard at times, but the highs have been pretty high as well.
Can I just point something out that you just described the title of your book with the description of that book, Fall, Rise, Give. Basically, you said the twists and the turns and the river and because basically you have to fall in order to succeed. You have to know the things that you have to know the lows in order to know the highs. You have to know the highs in order to understand what the lows are, and you have to take those experiences and share those with others, and that's the give.
Yeah, totally agree. Back in the day, I think it was 1994, I ran my first marathon. And I think that year, a month before, Oprah ran her first marathon. And I remember this saying from her. I don't watch her show. I think she's a great human being and all of that. She had a particular saying that without true suffering, there is no true joy. And so without true pain, there's no true joy. I think to be able to experience the spectrum, if you're just living a numb life in the middle, there's no joy or happiness in that. You might be able to live, I think that's a way of being dead already, living a numb life. But I think if you feel the pain, then the joy will be there as well. And in the middle somewhere, the middle path, as the Buddhists call it, is the way to go, but not living a numb life. And we'll talk about sobriety and alcohol and how that stops us from living a rational life down the road as well. But I don't want to forget about that fact. I think alcohol is a great tool for joy, but for a lot of people, I think is 10% or more. that it causes a lot of problems, and it did for me. It made me live a numb life, and so we'll talk about that down the road as well.
All right. I just, since you brought that up on this episode, I want to bring this up. I was a radio personality for 30 some years and lost my job in 18. And now I'm a bartender. A friend of mine owned a bar and said, Bob, you'd be a great bartender. And I said, you know what? I prefer to be on that side of the bar, not on this side of the bar. And she goes, you know what? Give it a chance. See if you like it. And if you like it, do it. If you don't, no harm, no foul. I became a bartender 5.5 years ago. And I'll tell you what, I wish I would have started doing it a long time ago. The job of a bartender is more than just serving drinks. It's more than, it's a job of a listener. You have to share. I live in a small town in Wisconsin on the river, so I have to share a lot of information about what's going on around here, what's going on around in other parts. I'm close to Iowa, I'm close to Minnesota, so I'm telling people, if you're heading that way, go check this out. If you're heading up here, check this out. And so I mean, the job of a bartender is more than just putting a drink in front of somebody. Anybody can do that. To be a good bartender, you have to be able to listen, you have to be able to communicate, you have to be able to give people what they're looking for, entertain. You have to do a little bit of this, that, and the other thing.
I totally agree with you, Bob. Original conversation why I reached out to you is I wanted this book to be a conversation with a bartender. I came up with a fictitious name, Jimmy. Kumar and Jimmy having a conversation about life as a bartender and a person on the other side of the bar. I think bartenders bring a lot of joy to the world. A couple of my really good friends that I still stay connected to me were bartenders. One of my good friends owned a bar in Seattle, and he's a very grounded human being. And I think by and large, 80% of what you guys do is bring joy to people's lives. There are certainly people that fall a little too much, get addiction and get the disease of alcoholism. But I think as a whole, you guys bring a lot of joy to the world. People watch sporting events together. I went to a bar yesterday, the local hangout. I happen to drink a non-alcoholic beer nowadays called Athletic, which I love. But yeah, I think bars bring people together. I think bartenders play the role of a therapist, a priest, a good friend. I think you add a lot of value to society. So there's absolutely nothing but respect for bartenders in my life.
You mentioned the priest thing, and since we both grew up Catholic, we are not bound by the cloak of, hey, if you tell me something, I'm not telling anybody else about it, because sometimes we do slip up and let people know, hey, we are sometimes a spreader of gossip as well.
Yeah, agreed. No doubt about it. I mean, hey, you're going to talk about that pretty eye candy down the street as well, no matter what thing you're talking about.
Absolutely.
Just to add a little what you said there, grew up Catholic. A very fascinating statement. I think it came out naturally for you. For me, I went to a Catholic school in India called Sacred Heart Catholic School of Christ. A lot of schools in India are Catholic, so that's not a unique thing. What's unique is I fell in love with Jesus early on, and I actually wanted to become a Christian. But I didn't like the fact that the Christians said only way is through Jesus, and so that meant that my whole Hindu family was going to hell. That doesn't jive with me, and that's why I'm probably not a Christian. And then when I got married, my wife's Catholic. I actually went through the RCIA process of becoming Catholic when I was about 29, 28 years old. And I had lots of discussions with a Catholic priest about, hey, my philosophies are those guys aren't going to hell. They're good people. They follow a different religion. And so he and I agreed that that's not true. That's not what he believes. Catholicism actually seems to be a little more open-minded to that whole thing. There's a lot of mysticism around Catholicism as well. And so I actually became a Catholic officially, I believe around 1999, 2000, through, again, a church called Sacred Heart Church in Seattle. So I found the Sacred Heart, which is Jesus, very interesting, that keeps coming back in my life. And that's where we are. So I did sort of grow up Catholic, but I'm open-minded to other religions. I'm in loving. We'll talk about Hinduism. We'll talk about Buddhism a little bit in this podcast, but we're not trying to portray a particular religion. We have a faith. We're not going to shy away from it. We're going to get excited about living. We're going to talk about the falling. And so, yeah, that's that.
Looking forward to what the podcast has to bring to us. Fall, Rise, Give. My name is Bartender Bob. That's Kumar. We will talk to you on our next episode. Peace out. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Fall, Rise, Give, where we explore stories of resilience, growth, and giving back. If you enjoyed today's episode, please check out our website at fallrisegive.com. Also, consider subscribing to our podcast on your favorite platform and leaving us a review. Your feedback helps us to continue to bring you inspiring stories. Stay tuned for our next episode. And remember, every fall is a chance to rise, and every rise is an opportunity to give. Until next time, keep falling, rising, and giving. This is Fall, Rise, Give, produced by podcastforhire.com. Thank you for listening.